a small waist and then big full glutes. And then you start to come down in the cutting phase. Increase your calories, but you keep your protein high, you're not gonna lose that muscle mass.
Today we're gonna be talking to a pro bodybuilder. We're gonna break down what my nutrition and training looks like as a pro CrossFit athlete compared to what hers looks like as a pro bodybuilder. You may recognize her from her podcast, Find Your Forma, but I know her as my cousin. So let's dive right in. This is Natalie. We talked prior and we talked about 3 different phases that you go through.
Yeah.
So we typically have a lifestyle, a cut, and then a bulking or a gaining phase, depending on how you want to look at that. So let's start with lifestyle. Let's talk about, in your lifestyle, what does that mean? That's typically not training or prepping for a comp, just kind of living your everyday life.
Yeah.
What does your eating and nutrition look like in those phases?
So during the lifestyle phase, I do not track. I try to take a break from it because otherwise I'm so meticulous that it's like, oh my gosh, I am psycho and I will measure everything when I'm tracking. So for lifestyle, I take a break from that. Like, all right, because I don't want to get burned out, but I do pay attention to my protein. So I will try to get like 20 to 30 grams of protein every single meal. And then I really focus on that intuitive eating and just like listening to my body. And when I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. And when I'm not, I don't. But I focus on whole foods as much as possible. And I'll track my protein. I'll be like, all right, I'll look at things and I'll say, okay, I know this is around 20 grams. And then I'm going to add some berries with it, knowing that it's carbs. Or if I want to add peanut butter, I know that that's fat. And then I just know it's a well-balanced meal to some yogurt. But other than that, I just kind of choose my carbs and fats through whole foods, and then I really focus on my protein, and that's it. So that's more so the lifestyle. It's more relaxed, but focusing on protein. What do you do, Christy? Tell me that.
Yeah, so as CrossFit, it's actually really similar. So it's refreshing to hear that there's balance.
Yeah.
Focused on protein and not worrying about being meticulous and tracking every single thing you do so you can live a little bit. So I'm the exact same way. I am so dialed in for so many months out of the year as I lead into that competition. But then out of the competition, it's like, not that I'm free and I'm just binging, but I'm focused on protein, I'm focused on whole, minimally processed foods, and I'm focused on feeling good.
Yeah.
Eating what makes me feel good to have energy for my off-season workouts and also be able to enjoy going out with my husband and hang out with some friends and not feel so restricted that I'm prepping for this competition.
I actually have a question for you based off of that. So before you started training for the CrossFit Games, what was your lifestyle then? You know, compared to now? Like, was it similar in the sense? Did you even look at macros? Because I started with the lifestyle and then went into the bodybuilding and training for that and found the difference between the two. But what was it like for you?
That's so interesting. I actually don't feel like I had a really great grasp on how much food I needed to be eating to even fuel my lifestyle. So I think coming from an endurance world, like I was always trying to make good decisions, but protein was not something that I was focused on or thinking about.
Me either.
Biggest change I ever made. So I would agree. That shifted into a lifestyle, which then I took up a notch further to be able to take into the sport world. So I think everybody needs a balance and a base to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's like we all want to dive into these extremes. It's like I want to go from 0 to 100 and skip all of these middle steps.
Right.
And you can't. Those steps are so important to learn about food, to learn about lifestyle, and then you can fine tweak and dial things in further and further.
Oh, I love that. Yes, that is so key and important. Like knowing your lifestyle, what your home base is, and then knowing when you can dial it up or dial it back and go back to that home base.
Yeah, so speaking of dialing up or dialing back, let's start with dialing up.
Okay.
So I know we discussed before you were a professional dancer before going into pro bodybuilding. So bodybuilding and dancing are going to be very, very, very different.
So different.
So talk about a little bit about what it looks like when you dial up. For when I say dial up, so you're looking to build more, and you can talk about that a little bit, essentially massing and what that is.
Yes. So like I mentioned before, I'm in like my lifestyle phase right now when it comes to nutrition and to my training. So I'm working out, I'm still strength training, but starting next week actually, I'm going to be dialing everything up and bulking or building way more. So my nutrition, my calories are going to go way up. My protein, like everything is going to be increasing, and my strength training is going to be increasing as well. And it's just going to be super meticulous and really boring, to be honest. Like it's the same exercises, the same reps over and over and over until it's like, okay, I've accomplished that, I've mastered that, now I'm going to increase in weight. And the whole point is to grow my muscles and to grow my muscle mass and the shape that I'm wanting to achieve, which in the bodybuilding section that I'm in, my category is bikini. So they want really nice wide back and a small waist and then big full glutes. So it's really, really interesting. You focus a lot on your shoulders and your upper back and then your lower body, and then you have to eat a lot and you gotta work out a lot, and it's really boring and repetitive, but it's also really interesting too. So it's just whenever I am bulking up and building my muscles, I know I'm going to be focusing way more on my protein and being very specific with my macros to a T, and then lifting heavier weights and really just trying to get stronger and stronger in those specific areas.
Today's video is sponsored by LMNT. LMNT is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. So none of the junk and lots of salt. No sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. Electrolytes are responsible for hundreds of functions in the body, including hydration. Water alone is not enough. LMNT is formulated to help everyone and anyone with their electrolyte needs with a science-backed formula of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. LMNT can help prevent and eliminate things such as headaches, sleeplessness, muscle cramps, fatigue, which can be common symptoms of electrolyte deficiency. Right now, LMNT is offering my subscribers, that's you, a free sample packet with any order. This is a great way to try all 8 flavors or share LMNT with a salty friend. Get yours at drinklmnt.com/Christy Ermo. This deal is only available through my link, linked below. You can get it at drinklmnt.com/Christy Ermo. Now back to our video. So when you're bulking, and I think this is really important, so a lot of people want to make these drastic changes.
Yeah.
I noticed when we discussed this earlier, there's usually 3 phases even within the gain and the bulking.
Yes.
So you're spending a couple weeks here, then when your body starts to find that balance and that homeostasis, it's like, okay, we can increase again. Okay, now we can increase again. Do you want to talk just a little bit about that? Like maybe how that calorie increase happens or how often that happens? For those of you guys looking to put on muscle mass, you want to make sure that you're doing it in a smart way and you don't go from eating 2,000 calories to 3,500 calories within a 24-hour swing.
Yes, because that's where the extreme comes in, right?
Yes.
So yes, very, very good point. And so what I will do is, right now I'm around 1,600 calories in like my lifestyle, and that's what I feel comfortable with and what I feel full and satisfied. And now when I start to bulk, I'm going to be increasing about 200 to 300 calories per week. Sometimes a little bit more. It really depends on how hungry I am too, because if I am going really hard and my workouts are really intense and I feel energized and fueled to go harder and stronger in my workouts and I'm really hungry, I'm gonna listen to my body. So then usually it'll be about 2 to 3 weeks that we increase calories. So it'll be like 1,800 calories, and then after 200 weeks, then it'll be like 19 or 2,000 calories every 2 or 4 weeks. So it really just depends, but it is a gradual increase. It is, rather than jumping from like 0 to 100 really quick, because then, I mean, it would be kind of like impossible and I'd feel stuffed, and then that's when it's like, oh God, I could never do this. So.
Exactly. And as that gradual increase is happening, your training is also gradually increasing.
Yes.
So you're fueling your training.
Yes.
So that leads into what I do. So I also fuel my training, and it is gradual increases. So as we're building up, as our volume is increasing, my food is increasing. I'm not quite as meticulous as exactly what those calories are, but I do increase within those cycles and within those weeks leading up to the games. So my maintenance calories, hers are closer to 1,600. My maintenance calories are closer to 2,250 to 2,300, and I'll go upwards of 3,000 plus, up to 3,200 headed into the CrossFit Games.
Right.
And really, I'm not restricting. I'm trying to eat as much as I possibly can. And I am at my highest into competition, which is where this is going to differ from bodybuilding.
Right.
Bodybuilders, you guys tend to bulk and gain, but then about 2 months out,
About
you
2
said?
months out.
They start cutting. So for us, 2 months out, we are ramping. We are eating as much calories as we can, making sure that ours is not necessarily for aesthetic purposes or muscle gain, but ours is to fuel our recovery and our energy in the gym as a pro CrossFit athlete.
Right.
For you guys are going more for you're building your muscle, but then you're cutting to get that aesthetic build of the wide back, the narrow hips, the big full glutes.
Yes.
So you want to talk about the cutting phase and what that looks like? And then also with the cutting phase, how your training adjusts. So do you feel fueled for the training that you're doing, or do things start to change there?
Yes, so that's actually really, really good points and questions. And the one thing I will say that is so interesting about the two, especially coming from a dancer background and perspective, I danced my whole life. So I always wanted to make sure that I was fueled to perform and have this energy and to be moving, which is kind of similar with the CrossFit Games. Like, you need to be fueled to perform and to do things and not just like pass out.
Yeah,
and so,
that won't be good.
Yeah, I don't want to say that that's the point with bodybuilding, but especially the month before and the week before, so 2 months before, as you gradually increased and you're building all of this muscle, and maybe that takes, let's just say 3 months, okay? So you're building muscle for 3 months, and then for 2 months, you're at the top of it, at your highest calories, you're in most intense workouts, all these things, and then you start to come down in the cutting phase. Also, again, about every 2 to 3 weeks, you decrease calories again, you decrease everything, but this important part is that you keep your protein super high. So a macro percentage, my calories when I'm building, my macro cut will be 40% carbs, 30% protein, and 30% fats of whatever calories I have. And then when I'm coming down, it's actually 30% carbs, 40% protein, and 30% fat, which the more and more that I've been learning and getting my certifications with everything, if you decrease your calories but you keep your protein high, you're not gonna lose that muscle mass. And that's the whole point of the bodybuilding, is to have that very specific physique. It's all about how you look, and the posing, holy crap.
Yeah.
The posing. Everyone told me, they're like, Natalie, you need to practice your posing, you need to practice your posing. I'm like, oh, Murray, I got it. I was a dancer, you know? And then I got a posing coach, and the amount of like twisting and turning and sucking in and like everything is very, very specific and down to the T, because it's all about how you present this beautiful physique and body that you just built, and now you have to present it. Yeah. So it does kind of feel like a show in that way, and that dancer background comes out, but the posing, people can win an entire show just because they posed better, but their bodies can look amazing and beautiful, but it's how you present. So I'm getting off track, but going down in the decrease of calories, my protein stays really, really high, but you get into a big calorie deficit, lower and lower and lower. And at the same time though, my training stayed the same of my strength training and my workouts, and my cardio increased, because that's how you also cut. So your calorie decreases, but I was doing just like a high incline walking. So I would do that for an hour every single day on top of my strength training. And that gives you that quick, like, lean body physique, but you have to make sure you're fueling your body with good old whole foods, especially the protein, so you do have the energy. But I'm still learning, so I've been this for like a year, and I'm about to do another show, and it's really, really interesting. Now the professionals that I follow and like stalk them to a T, they've been doing this for like 10 years. It's crazy. Because they build upon everything that they have year after year after year, so they won't have to go in such a big calorie deficit, and they'll be around like over 2,000 calories, which is really interesting. So it does vary from person to person.
Yeah, so that's super fascinating. So there's a couple things there that are so interesting to me.
Yeah.
For the macro split, so I stay, like she talked about, I stay around 40, 30, 30, 40% carb, 30% protein, 30% fat in my lifestyle. So that is the same. That is something we both do. Maybe our calories are a little bit different and our overall volume of food that we're eating is different, but that breakdown is the same.
Yeah.
As she shifts into competition prep, she shifts into, you said 40% protein, 30% carb, and 30% fat. So she takes her protein up and then splits her fats and carbs equally. Mine shifts drastically on a different end as a carb-heavy diet. I eat about 60% from carbs, 20% from protein, and 20% from fat, heading into a competition. So there you can see that I'm going for, carbs are usually the body's number one source of fuel. Yep. So I'm going for things that my body can store and digest and keep my glycogen stores very high and full. So when I'm training and I'm in these really tough workouts, I have stuff to pull from.
Right.
At that point, I've built the muscle, I've built the strength.
Right.
We're just maintaining what we can at that point.
And your energy levels too.
Yes, and our energy levels are so important.
Yes.
So that's where the high carbohydrate diet comes into place.
Right.
So that to me is super fascinating.
Yeah, and I have to say with that, in the same thing, is the goals are different, right? And they're not to say one's worse or better than the other, but it's just so interesting when people will come and say, well, I want to do this, so tell me whatever you're doing. I want to look like you, or I want to do what you do. And it's like, well, what's your goal? Because that will determine so many factors and so many things of how you implement in your day-to-day process. And I don't have to have all this energy to stand on stage and pose. I mean, it's not that easy, but I don't need as many carbs to do it, but I do need my muscles to really be, they call it like the pump up. You'll see all the bodybuilders backstage like pumping iron and all these things because they want that, their muscles to be full and voluptuous and pretty and protruding out. Whereas you're standing there and you're posing, yes, you need energy, but not as much as a 40% macro breakdown of carbs because the focus is your muscles and the protein to support that. So I think everyone's goals and what you're looking for is super, super important too, and what you're trying to accomplish.
So I have another question for you then, and I see this a lot with questions that I get from YouTube and also on Instagram and just in the gym as well.
Yeah.
A lot of us want to build these physiques, which is ultimately what you're doing in this bikini competition. But I hear you talking about a lot about how you have to eat more and more and more. One, coming from a dance background, that seems like maybe that's a little bit different than what you were used to.
Oh, yeah.
And two, how is it to wrap your brain around how much you have to eat to actually be able to build muscle? Because the only way we can truly build muscle is by being in a surplus.
Yes.
And a lot of us want to eat less, but have that lean tone look, and those two don't really go hand in hand.
Yes. Oh my God, that's so perfectly well said. And it was a struggle. It was such a struggle when I went and first started this whole process of competing and knowing what it takes to build muscle. And I had to wrap my mind and accept the fact, like, if you're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the different results, but you're not changing anything, like that's the definition of insanity, right? And so I had to learn how to let go and to trust the process and to trust my trainer and my coach and to look at the science and like the evidence and to know, okay, this makes sense. In order, I want bigger muscles. Like I want my muscles to grow, so I need to give them fuel to grow. It makes sense when you take a step back and look at it. But it did take some time, and once I just trust the process, I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. And I started to see the results, and I listened to my coach. I listened to the experts and like my trainer who had done this for years. It's like, oh, okay, this is how you do it. This I understand. And I was eating more and more and more than I ever had. I think at one point I got to like 2,500 calories, which was huge for me. And I was like, how can I ever eat that much? But when I was doing more intense workouts, when I was giving more energy and lifting heavier weights, and then it's funny because I always had this fear of, I'm gonna get fat. And like, no, that doesn't happen. That does not happen. The body does amazing things. And once you just trust the process and listen to what you're supposed to do, like you're gonna be guided in the right direction. But it was definitely hard.
Yeah, and I can relate to that too. As a CrossFit athlete and working with a nutrition coach, they're like, you need to get this much protein in.
Yeah.
You need this many carbs. And I'm like looking at Patrick like sitting over my bowl of rice, like I can't eat another spoonful of carbs.
Yeah.
But then you start to realize like, wow, I'm sleeping better.
Whew.
My mood is staying stable. I have energy in the gym.
Yeah.
I'm not experiencing brain fog. And it's like, whoa, all of those things led me to believe like, wow, I was truly under eating. I'm no longer having the aches and the pains.
Right.
My body is keeping itself healthy because it's able to recover and repair.
Yeah.
And so I think just understanding and trusting the process and looking at the science and the evidence of how you build muscle is so important, and not, hindering all of that work that you've put in the gym just because mentally it's a little scary. Like you don't want to get fat, so you don't want to put this food in your body, but really it's that counterintuitive approach that your body needs that food and that fuel.
Right.
And I can't stress that enough.
Oh, me too. And I will tell people who I work with, I'm like, you need to eat more, especially protein. And as women and the culture that we've grown up in, I feel like it's getting a little better now, but the culture we've grown up in is to be like really thin and really skinny and not to eat and order salads, and like the less food you eat, that's better. That's how to be at least that was my experience.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Especially in the dancer world too. It's like I'm not that hungry, and really it's like, no, I'm starving. I could eat a steak, you know? And it's okay to eat. Like it's a good thing to do. And I think that's why Lindsay and I started Find Your Forma, is to really just help women like get through all the BS and the noise and to understand like you don't have to eat like a bird. You can actually have amazing energy, but you need to give your body the fuel to have the energy. And I think that's the most important thing is when you have that energy and you just feel great and you have more pep in your step and you're sleeping better, your skin clears up. Like it's this beautiful ripple effect of positivity that happens.
So I think talking about eating lots of food, like that's what you guys are hearing on a recurring basis for what I do as a pro CrossFit athlete and also what she does as a pro bodybuilder. That's a huge piece to the puzzle. We both train super hard, but we have to eat to fuel our goals, which Natalie touched on earlier. What are your goals? What is your mindset? And if it feels like a lot of food, it is a lot of food if you're eating whole, minimally processed foods, which we both touched on. If you're eating donuts and Oreos and sugar and cake and all this crap, then it's not gonna feel like very much because those are super high fat and they're super calorically dense.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna satisfy you and fill you up, but they're also not gonna make you feel great.
Right.
And I know at Find Your Forma, as coaches, that's what you guys work with people on, is helping them understand like how these are, one, things that you apply to yourself to help you reach your goals, but two, helping people understand what they should put on their plate.
Yes. And you were so right. Filling your body or starting your day, which is so interesting how our typical breakfast is donuts and bagels and high sugar cereal, right? And it is just a bunch of starch and sugar and carbs and fats. But when you feel that, like you might have a spike in energy and then it drops and up and down and up and down. And that's when you just feel really bad throughout your day. When we did a whole episode on this on the podcast about whole foods versus processed foods. And just like you touched earlier, your body is meant to absorb whole foods and it knows exactly how to take that nutrients and what to do with it. And that's when you start to feel that magic happen and tons of energy. And you also can eat more in a sense of whenever you're having whole foods. And then think about it. You could go through a whole box of like Cheez-Its and still feel hungry because your body's not satisfied, because your body's saying, I need more nutrition. I need more nutrients. I didn't get what I'm needing. And when you have like an apple or when you have chicken and rice, like you're full and you're satisfied and you feel really good. Your body knows exactly what to do with whole food nutrition, and it's going to feel amazing when you fuel your body with whole foods. So starting that way and starting your day with whole foods just also is one small step you can do to set the tone for the rest of your day and to set yourself up for success. Like eggs and sweet potatoes or avocado and spinach, like doing a bowl. Ooh, that sounds delicious. Like that is setting yourself up for success the whole rest of the day.
Yeah. And I absolutely agree. You guys will see us post lots of stuff like that. So I guess getting back to also the bodybuilding piece, which is really different from CrossFit. So I was just thinking about this. How do you come out of that cut? So I know for a lot of people, especially when you look at lean CrossFit females, a lot of people ask us about our cycles. Do we have regular cycles? Yes, you should be having regular cycles. Bodybuilding's the same. Like there can be a lot of body issues. Obviously they're at the leanest of the leanest. I'm not sure. Do you know what body fat percentage you operate when you're on stage?
My leanest body fat percentage, I got down to 16% body fat. Yeah. And my normal would be around 22, like on a normal day.
Which is super healthy for a female,
Yeah.
So when you come out of that cut, what does that look like, or how do you do that? Is there a lot involved with that? Because that's a piece for us as pro CrossFit athletes. We do have to cut back on the calories we're consuming, but it's not necessarily, we're just, no longer needing that much energy.
Yeah.
For you, you're starting to increase your energy back up.
Yes.
So there's a very big difference in the two.
Yes, and it's kind of similar to the gradual increase like we do when we're building or like bulking and building more muscle, but it's a lot with the mindset. That's when your mental health like really becomes the shining focus in that whole phase. It's because you're at your leanest and you're being judged on stage for how you look and you put in all this hard work and you're exhausted and tired and all you want to do, I remember this is a funny story, so I came off stage and the first thing I wanted, and you look around everyone else, people are having like donuts or cookies or like something that they haven't been able to have for a while or have chosen not to have. And remember I ate like 3 chocolate chip cookies from the grocery store and I ate them so fast and then immediately my body was like, ugh, what was that? Like you feel satisfied at first and then afterwards like my stomach was so messed up. And thank God I had an amazing coach and trainer, and she really gave me a strategic plan focusing on whole foods, having mostly whole foods, and slowly reintroducing other like super high veggies and sweet potatoes and things that give you that energy, and focusing on the 80-20 rule. So I still was really strict about my whole food nutrition, but then like after 3 weeks, then it's like, all right, 80% of my day is gonna be whole foods, and then I'll add in other things that are minimally processed foods, like maybe it's whole wheat gluten-free pretzels and hummus or things like that. So adding that back in gradually over time was super, super important, but there is a very meticulous plan in place to get you back to your lifestyle phase and to understand and know, like, no, you're actually not supposed to be this lean. Yeah. And we do track our cycles as well, and also our hormone levels. So if your hormones are like super, super low, it's like, all right, we got to give your body what it needs to make sure everything's functioning properly and that you're fueling yourself and that you're feeling your best. So everything has a plan.
Yeah. Essentially what we want to share with you guys is that like what she's competing at on stage and what I'm competing at the CrossFit Games, though they're very, very different, where I'm going through a mass surplus of calories, trying to consume as much as I possibly can to fuel my goals. She may be going through a cut, trying to make herself look aesthetically one way. We're both extremes, or we're on the end of extreme, and that's not a maintainable lifestyle. So the goal is to find something that you can maintain and walk around and feel really great, but you also will know that your lifestyle is not going to be linear.
Right. Just as we hit extremes and then go back up and down, everyone's life is like that, regardless of where you are. You don't have to be competing in CrossFit or on stage at a bodybuilding competition. But once you reach a goal, like, you're not going to stay there forever. And your goals are going to change, and life changes. So your goals change. And I completely agree with you. It's finding that lifestyle that you can feel your best, that your home base you can come back to, and then go up and down every now and then. It's inevitable.
Yeah, and I think give yourself some grace. Stop judging yourself. Just be okay with, maybe I'm in this portion of my life that maybe I'm in a surplus. Maybe the holidays hit and I don't feel as good as I normally do. Guess what? You can always get back on track. You're just one meal away from starting to turn things around, one exercise away from getting back on track, but knowing that there is a lifestyle component and that you don't need to take things to extreme to look and feel your best. So I think people are probably curious. You mentioned that you were a dancer in the past and kind of that lifestyle change and how you started with lifestyle. I remember when I heard you were doing your first fitness competition, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This is so cool. I can't wait to see the differences in what I do as a pro CrossFit athlete versus what you're gonna be doing as a bodybuilder, which, by the way, she got a pro card in her very first show, which is absolutely unheard of and super incredible.
Thank you.
But what made you kind of lean towards bodybuilding after a lifetime of dance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I got married in May, and it's not like profound or anything. It was super superficial. I just loved the physique, and I was like, I want to look like that. And so I just reached out and I did my research, and it turned out one of my girlfriends told me that she used to compete, and I've been looking into the bodybuilding world. I was just so intrigued by it and like what it takes, and I also felt that I was ready for another challenge in the fitness side of my routine. And I was loving my workouts, but I wanted a little bit more. I wanted to take things to the next level. And when I got engaged and we were planning our wedding, I was like, oh, perfect. Like, this is great motivation. I'll have a deadline. Like, I'm gonna work with a trainer. And I told her, I was like, I don't want to compete. I just want this physique, and this is what I'm getting married. And if you can just train me to teach me how to build that way and how to eat and maintain and achieve that look, that's what I'm going for. And throughout the process, I became obsessed because I was learning so much, and I love to learn. I'm always asking why. Like, okay, well, why do I need to eat more? And like, why do I need to do boring exercises to achieve a specific role and routine? And it was so cool, and I just fell in love with the process. I really did. And whenever you see your body going through these transformations, and your mind, and the way you're eating, and the way you're feeling, it's like, this is so cool. And then my trainer said to me, Natalie, you could really compete. Like, you're doing all this work, like, you should just see what shows are nearby. And I live in Charleston, South Carolina, so I Googled some, and I found one in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It's like, okay, I can drive there. And I signed up, and it gave me even more accountability. But even signing up, Christy, oh my God, I was so nervous. Like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. Should I do this? What if I fail? What if I can't get there? And this is going to be really scary, a really scary thing. But I did it, and I talked myself through it, and I was my biggest cheerleader, and we got there, and it was the best experience ever. And once I got on stage, and after you put in all this hard work, it's just in such an enjoyable process. And I know you had mentioned to me that some of the girls you compete against are like your best friends. Yeah. And the same thing, I met the nicest people at this competition, and all the women were so supportive, and you go through the same process. You have an ultimate respect for each other. Yep. And we were all cheering each other on stage, and it was so cool. I mean, there was a woman who was 65 up there and competing, and she looked so good. And you're all there for the same reasons, and you're in like this amazing environment and community of other people who I still keep in touch with today. So needless to say, I just fell in love with the sport and with the lifestyle of competing and learning. The learning process was really cool. So I said I was just going to do one show, but now I'm going to do another.
The bug has got her. And I think that was really cool. So she also touched on something that we do a lot in CrossFit is boring. Like, I'll show up to the day and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Wednesday. I'm hitting these squats again at a different RPA, RPE, or a different percentage. And it's like, sometimes you have to do the boring thing to get better. And that's how you can track progress. You can't be like, squirrel, I want to do this, I want to do that. It's like, you have to stick to a plan, and you have to track progress. And there's something that is just so fulfilling when you get there and you do achieve your goal. And then not being afraid of failure. I talk about this a lot, is just being okay to take that. It's, fail can stand for first attempt in learning, FAIL. You're trying something new, you're giving it a go, and you're just, if you don't take the risk, then you lose the chance to even be able to. And you don't want to look back in 15 years and be like, why didn't I just give that a try? It's because I was so scared to step outside of my comfort zone, which is exactly what you're doing here. And I think it's just so motivating and so inspiring, and that never be afraid. Like, you can do whatever you set your heart to.
I love that. Thanks, Chris. That's so good. And being uncomfortable, or being comfortable with the uncomfortable, that's the biggest thing I learned. Like, I wanted to achieve this whole look and physique, and it was like surface level goals that I had. And throughout the process, I learned like, wow, I'm actually facing my fears, and I'm overcoming them. And I'm not just running away or giving up or throwing in the towel because I'm uncomfortable and I have this fear of failing. It's like, okay, what if we push through? Like, what if we follow through with this and be comfortable being uncomfortable? And that was like the best thing. And I feel like I've grown from that. And now it's like, okay, let's keep this mojo going. So
being comfortable being uncomfortable is just such a theme. Whether it's bodybuilding or CrossFit or whatever, if you're running a marathon, if you're training for a triathlon, being okay with that uncomfortableness. And I'll never forget when I qualified for my first CrossFit Games. That was actually one of my mottos that I would repeat in my head, is like, it's okay to be uncomfortable. You're gonna be uncomfortable, it's okay. And that kept me moving through, specifically in Tommy V back in 2015. I didn't qualify that year, but I did really well in that workout. And I think being afraid of failure is normal, but not letting it hinder you. So when I qualified for my first CrossFit Games, I'll never forget, I looked at Pat and I was like, what if I take last? I don't belong here. I'm so terrified. And then I went on to qualify 7 years after that consistently. And so it's one of those things, if I didn't take the chance, if I didn't take the risk, and I was so afraid that I let the fear of failure control my life, I wouldn't be where I am today, and you wouldn't be where you are today. And we wouldn't have learned and grown so much as individuals, and also be able to share our journeys with all of you. So now that you guys have learned about Natalie's story, and hopefully we'll have her on another episode coming up soon. So if you guys like this and you want to learn more maybe about protein, nutrition, specific training stuff, drop that in the comments. But I really want you to learn where you can find her and follow her journey, because she also does coach clients, and she has a podcast, like I mentioned at the start of this video.
So one of my best friends and I have a podcast. It's called Find Your Forma, and we're on every major podcast platform. Basically, we are trying to debunk diet industry myths and having these kinds of conversations, and really listening to trendy diets or fads or what society's telling us and saying, well, is that really true? And diving deep into research and experience and truth and comparing sides, and allowing people, we're just presenting information and allowing people to find what works best for them, hence the name Find Your Forma. So that's our podcast. And then yes, I'm also a nutrition coach as well. If you follow us on Instagram, Find Your Forma, Forma spelled Forma, then you can always shoot us a message and learn more. We are more than happy to help everyone just feel their best and achieve their goals.
Yay! So I'll drop that. I actually was recently on her podcast, so make sure you guys check out that episode.
The best episode ever!
I'll drop those links below so you guys can click on those, but please let us know in the comments what you thought, if you learned something about bodybuilding versus CrossFit, or what you would love to see in a future video. Don't forget, smash the like button, it helps our channel, and we'll see you in the next video. Yay!